Konnichiwa, and welcome to the Samurai Way, the podcast where we dive into the wisdom of the samurai, the art of Japanese living, and the philosophies that help us live with purpose and perseverance. I'm Lori Tsugawa, and whether you're here to explore Bushido, the samurai, uncover the meaning of Ikigai, or just looking for a little extra gambaru, never give up spirit in your daily life, you're in the right place. So grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and let's walk this path together. Are you ready? Let's begin. Welcome, everyone. Konnichiwa. I'm Lori Tsugawa, your host for the Samurai Way podcast. And today we have a special guest. I'm really excited for you to meet him and hear what his wisdom. His name is John Golden. We found through LinkedIn, we were connected. And he's also has a best-selling book named Winning the Battle for Sales, Lessons on Closing Every Deal from the World's Greatest Military Victories. Draws direct inspiration from military strategy, echoing the spirit of Bushido and the mindset of the modern warrior. So this is going to be exciting. With a deep understanding of preparation and authenticity and continuous growth, John brings timeless principles to life through both business and personal development. Please help me welcome John Golden.
Yeah, hello, and thank you, Laurie. Thank you very much for having me.
Exactly. And I'm glad to meet you, even though it's virtually. I've been corresponding via email, but it's so nice to see a person face to face and have
Yeah,
these conversations. So it's what I think is really interesting is how you've connected military battles to what you face in life. So one of the things, your key points you wanted to bring out is just like in military strategy, success in business and life often comes from preparation. So would you like to expound on that?
yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, as you know that fail to plan, plan to fail, old saying, but it really rings true whether it's a military campaign that needs to be planned out to the detail, with contingencies or a business plan. Um, it's it's often the act of planning is almost more important than the plan itself, the
Mhm.
process that you go through. Because I'm not ex-military, but as people I know, they'll always tell you that the best laid plans, the minute the shooting starts, the plan goes out the window. Now that doesn't mean that it was a waste doing the plan, not at all. They know what their roles are, and maybe it gets executed, a little bit differently, but they have a starting point. And it's the same in business, because I think we live in this kind of frenetic world today. Call it, with the shortcut culture, when everybody wants to do, just shortcut everything. Like AI is now promising, oh yeah, you don't have to do anything now. You just use AI. However, if you go and look at the most successful people, and say in sales, the most successful salespeople, the preparation work they do before a sales call is a non negotiable, right? They go and they do that prep work because they know that in order to execute, they need to be as prepared as they can be. And that shows, and that's a discipline, because that's the first thing that goes once people start to do things regularly. They start to forget about doing, the prep work. And that's where I often see where people plateau or dip, especially if you're in the sales context, is if you go back and say, what were you doing when you were successful? And I guarantee you, a lot of times it's like, I was doing really solid prep work. And I'm kind of skimping on that these days. And you go, okay, go back to doing solid prep work and get yourself back to where you were before. So I think preparation is so profound. And that's not preparation and planning to the nth degree where you get into, perfectionism, because that's nonsense. Because if you go that route, you'll never do anything. Unfortunately, that's the reality of perfectionism. But it is focusing the time on planning and devoting enough time to it so that you can execute properly and you can turn up at your best. Because at the end of the day, whether you're in sales, whether you're in something else, if you can show up as your best, the only way you're going to do that is if you have prepared for that moment, you do it intentionally, and you do it deliberately, and you want to, and your goal is to present the best version of yourself in whatever interaction or situation that you find yourself in.
Well, I love that. And actually, I'm a speaker, and that was what we did too. Is so
Mhm.
much of their planning, or so much of the speech is in the planning and knowing when to pause and when to all of these things and know what to do if they have a plan B if plan A doesn't go
Mhm.
right. But just to wing it, when you wing it, it doesn't work. It's um,
Yeah, and I just think that yeah, that planning and having that contingency and plan B, um that's another thing. I think oftentimes people do the planning, but they only plan for the best case scenario or the scenario they're looking for. They fail to also go, okay, life being what it is, what are the chances of this going 100% the way I want it to go? So if I can't get this outcome, what's the next best thing I can look for? And in my book, I use this analogy of these two lords in England, like a few hundred years ago. I can't remember their names now, but they had an argument in the tavern the night before a big horse race, and so one called the other a coward or something. So they challenged they challenged each other to a duel the next morning. So the next morning they're out on the race course. For the duel, a huge crowd had gathered because this the news of this had spread, and just before the duel started, one of the participants, he took off all his clothes and stripped himself down to like just his underwear. And the other guy, yeah, yeah. So this is, and they say, these were two lords who'd enjoyed life, shall we say, and were not in the best shape of their lives either. Um, so the other guy is like, "What are you doing?" Like, this is nonsense. Like, what are you trying to do here? But it turned out that he had a very, very good reason for what he was doing because he had served in the British Army. In the empire somewhere, and he had seen a lot of times that when people in those days with little musket balls or whatever they're, that if the musket ball went through clean flesh, you could often get it out, and it didn't hit a major organ or artery, right? You could extract it and the person would live, right? And not that big a problem. However, if it went in through clothing, it was the fibers and stuff from the clothing, the dirty, that would infect the wound inside and the person would die. And he had seen this. So his contingency was he had three outcomes. He had one, he shoots and hits the other guy and wins. Two, the other guy shoots at him and misses, right? Or three, the other guy shoots, hits him, but goes through flesh, and if it doesn't hit a major artery, then he has a chance of actually surviving. So anyway, cut a long story short, the other guy just went, "Oh, I can't shoot at somebody who's standing there in their underwear." So they made up and they went off, and there was never the duel. But it's a great lesson because we oftentimes get so hung up on planning for just that one outcome that we forget about what happens if. So having those backup plans, I think, are always really, really important.
and I know that you're a student, you love Musashi, and that's
Mhm.
what he would do.
Yeah.
Although he would have different tactics for each one. He'd show up late or he'd do something to frustrate the
Yeah.
other, his dual partner, and win. He once almost, was it 60 battles that he won?
60, I think it was more than 60. I think it was
60,
60,
61 or two.
61, 61. I think it was undefeated, which is unheard of in
That's amazing.
samurai circles. Yeah, absolutely.
And
But
that
I
was his
also,
goal.
yeah, but I also like, the part that, because, I read his book and we're talking about the samurai master, 16th century, I think is the right, Miyoto Musashi. And one of the things he says in his book, and I pulled it up earlier because I wanted to make sure I didn't get it wrong. It says, "When you think you understand something, you have only made the first approach to it. To further clarify your understanding, you must read and read again. And each time you read and practice a thing, the spirit of the thing itself will reveal more of itself to you. Study is a lifelong undertaking. That is why it is said that the warrior first understands being a warrior when he no longer concerns himself with being a warrior."
Hmm, very wise.
Yeah, and I think that's the other part I would say about preparation. just preparation is an ongoing thing because you should always be educating yourself and trying
Hmm.
to understand and be a lifelong learner and trying to
Yes.
improve in what you do. Uh, and that's part of Bushido. It's part of like the martial arts that I do, and it's all about it's all about measuring yourself against yourself, right?
Yourself.
As opposed to trying to, because as you know, like in martial arts or something like that, you're always going to have somebody who's more flexible than you, who's younger, who's faster, who's this, who's that, right? We all have our own particular skill set. So if you spend your whole time looking around and trying to compare yourself to people and compete with them, you're never going to progress. It's when you finally learn to look at yourself and go, am I better today than I was yesterday? Did like than last week? Am I progressing? Am I investing the time and am I doing the work? And once you learn to use yourself as a frame of reference and really compete against yourself, I mean, I think that's when you get the greatest progress.
That's beautiful. Another point you wanted to cover was lead with authenticity. And I know that the the listeners will really resonate with that because we talk a lot about authenticity. And so I'd like to hear your take on that, John.
Yeah, authenticity. I think I go back to, like, I'm originally from Ireland, so I always quote my compatriot Oscar Wilde, who said, like, "Be yourself because everyone else is taken." And uh, but I think the point is, I think number one is we have to get away from these personas. And and once upon a time, let's face it, I mean, it was kind of the way it was done. Like, you went into work with your work face and your work persona and all this kind of stuff. And and depending what role you're in, people building personas and masks and everything. And I just think people are very wise to that now. But I also think that since the pandemic and that, people are craving more and more like human relationships, but they want to interact with real people. So I think it's when you turn up, it's like being honest, being honest and truthful, being candid and transparent in what you say. Looking for win-win situations,
Yes.
looking always to whatever I'm engaged in, if it's a buyer seller relationship, if it's whatever it is, even in life, in your relationships, it's like, how do we both win out of this, right? And get away from a more kind of, I win, then you have to lose, right? And said, look at life as in its abundance, as opposed to looking at it as limited or finite. And I think that. And unfortunately, I think authenticity, it was the word of the year 2 years ago, I think, in Merriam-Webster. It's become overcomplicated, and there's people who are like talking about it all the time, and it's almost inauthentic when you focus that much on being authentic. It's like, when does your focus on authenticity become inauthentic in itself, right? Uh, and I just think it's just as simple and straightforward as figuring out who you are first. So it's self awareness, and that's where you need to start. You need to start
Mhm.
understanding yourself, because you can't turn up as your authentic self if you don't know who you are, who your authentic self is. So self awareness, and for me, self awareness is the greatest gift that you can give to yourself, because I've seen it. I've experienced it myself. I've seen it, like, lack of self awareness often is what holds people back from being the best version of themselves, from achieving what they want to achieve. Unfortunately, oftentimes self awareness comes to us at advanced stages of our lives. It'd be great if we had it earlier. So if anybody younger people out there, I would encourage you to go on. I'm not saying go on this long journey of self discovery, but just start to spend a little bit of time off your phone or whatever, just with yourself, understanding who you are and how you interact with the world and how you show up in the world, because it'll really stand to you. So therefore, in order to be authentic, I think you have to be self aware, and you have to figure out who you are, what motivates you, why you're doing what you're doing, what your purpose is, and then just live that. And I think then people will relate to you in a much more kind of organic way.
That's so true. That's so true. And you also talked about Kaizen, commit to continuous growth, and that's
Yeah,
what Kaizen
yeah,
is, and I
it
love
is.
it.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, as you know, like, people sometimes they're always like setting big goals, and that's fine. I mean, it's great to set big goals, but oftentimes they set really big goals, and then don't really do anything because the goal is so big
So
that
daunting.
yeah, it's so daunting. Instead of, as you say, like set that big goal, but also say like, what are the small steps I need to take
Right.
towards that, and what are the things, little things that I can improve. It doesn't have to be, they always don't have to be grandiose things, because it's the accumulation or combination of all these things. They compound every time you focus on something that you can improve, something that you can make better or whatever, and you do it in Kaizen, you do it in bite-sized contained chunks. Then it can build upon itself. Like I said, if you just set these big goals and then you stand back and you go, "Whoa, that's a long way to go." Uh, I had Laurie, I had a guy on my podcast a couple of years ago, and it really, really stuck with me. He said he was a guy at the time. He was very unhealthy, overweight, like sitting on the couch, and he made a decision one day that he was going to run a marathon, and he was the furthest thing away from being able to run a marathon. So what he did was he got up that first day and he walked 5 minutes down the road and back. That's all he did. The next day he walked 6 minutes, and so on and so forth. And within a couple of years, he was running his first marathon.
Wow.
And he did it, but if he had gone out and tried to run 2 or 3 miles or whatever, like, he would have given up. But
Yes.
so it's or keeled over, one or the other. But it's a great lesson in, you're not like selling yourself short. You're being realistic, and you're putting one foot in front of the other, and you're doing it in a manageable way. And sure, you can set yourself stretch goals and all of that, but if you try to take too big a strides at one time, then you could end up demoralizing, demotivating yourself.
I agree with that. It's so important, the little steps. I mean,
Mhm.
think about it when you had a son. You talked about your son. Did he
Yeah,
learn how to run? His first year, no, he was crawling and then he
yeah,
pulls himself up and then he tries walking, falls down, but you didn't tell him, just forget it.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. Just give up. Yeah, yeah. No, not at all. But it is. But I do think, and I think again, I go back to the culture that we live in today, with all of this, like, shortcut culture, and people think, you can just, all these overnight successes and all of that kind of thing. That people I think a lot of people try to convince themselves that they don't need to do the hard work anymore, but you always need to do the hard work.
You do.
And nothing comes easy. And for every one of those overnight successes, number one, they're probably not an overnight success. It's probably been doing it for a long time. And for every one of those, there's thousands and thousands of ones who fail trying to take shortcuts.
Mhm, mhm. It's inch by inch.
Hmm.
The journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. You take one
And
step,
absolutely.
and the
And
other thing I like about Kaizen is using that in an organizational type
yeah, yeah.
situation
Hmm.
where everybody's input is important. Like the janitor is just as important as the CEO, and they put it all together. And there's not so many layers, or there's not that.
Yeah, they have our software development team that's based in Slovakia, in Bratislava. They do Kaizen sessions every day.
Oh.
So they have at least one session every day of just focused on improvement, and it makes such a big difference. And I think when you do it deliberately like that, it can be tremendous. And as you said, it also allows input from everywhere.
Yes.
It hasn't there's no hierarchy in Kaizen, because let's face it, the breakthrough might be in an area, that in a place that you would never know about. Only the
Mhm.
person who's involved in that would know that, and they could turn out to be, maybe lower on the hierarchical chart, but actually the most important person in this improvement process.
Yes, and I love being Japanese. I love that. I love Kaizen and just learning so many things, Kintsugi. And actually, I
Kintsugi.
learned about the Kota Bushido from my research after my traumatic brain injury. Did a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
research about it.
yeah. And Kintsugi is such a yeah, because I was watching your video, so I'm aware of your the challenges that you overcome. It's very inspiring, but the idea of Kintsugi is such a profound one, in that
Hmm.
for those of people who don't know, it's like, if there's a broken vase they put the vase back together, but maybe put it back with gold leaf and everything. So ultimately, the repaired piece, the imperfection, is actually more beautiful than the so-called perfect original. So it's like it's the beauty of our imperfections, and of creating different things out of different different phases, and it's a wonderful philosophy.
It is, and I like to tell people this could be applied to your own life.
Hmm.
Some people think that, oh, like when I had my traumatic brain injury, I could have said, oh well, t- it's over.
Yeah.
And my speech pathologist said that most people quit, and she says, "You're
Mm.
not quitting, Lori, are you?" I go, "No, I'm not until I overcome." And so I went from reading to at a seventh grade level to writing a book, which was
Mm.
published by Tuttle Publishing. So that
Mm.
was quite an accomplishment for me because I'd read done chapters in books, but never a whole book. So
Yeah.
that was something that I said, well, if I can do this, I'll overcome traumatic brain injury. So we can become, even though it might be different, it doesn't mean that we're not as good. Just like the
Yeah.
beautiful plate or vase done
Yep.
with that technique, the Japanese feel that it's even more beautiful once it's been
Hmm.
repaired.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a good, and I think that's a good, it's a good thing for people to remember that, we're all flawed, we're all imperfect people, we live in an imperfect world, we operate in imperfect circumstances, and you have to embrace that. And sometimes the greatest things come out of those imperfections.
Yes. And I was just thinking, even our faces, our face, we're not symmetrical. And they put people have done, they've done studies of people that have the same, they take their left side and they flip it to the right. They
Mhm.
look better unbalanced.
Right.
They do.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like we're not, what is perfection? We have a totally different outlook on that now because
Yeah, and I
anything
think
can be
it's an
improved.
illusion anyway, because
Yes.
it's just it's a very abstract concept, because it's a very subjective concept as
Hmm.
well. um, and that's why I think that, the beauty is like Kintsugi. The beauty in life is in the imperfect. It is the imperfections, and how the imperfections like bring character or value to, or additional value to that situation, person, whatever.
Hmm. So this has been very interesting, and I would just like to go over your three key points about preparation wins battles, and that is really really important. And it could be um, anything battles. It could be life. It could be what my dad used to say, prepare. Fail to plan or plan to fail. That's what
Yeah,
he
no,
used to say.
100%. Always plan. You don't have to, plan appropriately for the situation. You don't have to over plan, but you will, you will never regret planning. You will obviously
Right.
regret not planning, but you'll never regret planning.
And that's why I married an engineer. It's always planning, planning,
Yeah.
planning, dissecting, and lead with authenticity. No, people like people that are real,
Yeah,
and the more authentic you can be, and just be yourself, and even if you're flawed,
yeah.
who's perfect, right?
But you can't be yourself until you know yourself. So do
That's
the
right. That's right.
self-awareness, the
Thank you.
self-awareness piece.
Self-awareness is so.
Mhm.
And if there's something that needs improvement, well, there's time to do that. You can just, but
Yeah,
don't
no, I do say sometimes, when people just, I say, be yourself, unless yourself is a really, not great person, then go work on that first. And then, just don't go well, this is me and I'm being authentic. And you go, yeah, but you're not very nice. So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
great
you
that you're
don't
being
want that.
authentic. It'd be much better if you went back and fixed some of that first.
And I
Mm.
love the last part you talked about authenticity
Mhm.
because nobody wants to be with a chameleon, and
Mhm.
they
Yeah.
want a person to be real and honest. And after
Consistent.
they've worked on themselves, you can be much more open about being honest.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because you have that inner self confidence, because now you know yourself, and once you know yourself, it's a more it's a you know yourself better than anyone else, so you can relate to the world better.
That's right. Because only you know you, and
Yeah,
you can
exactly.
you can be something to everybody else, but you live with yourself all the
Yeah,
time, and that's the
exactly.
person that you have to really have to the person in the mirror. And so many good points we've had today. But I also wanted to ask you, John, and I ask a lot of my guests, is like, what is your big goal? What is your big dream? What do you want to leave as a legacy?
That's a really good question. To be honest, what I'm doing through the podcast and stuff now is just helping to, as a conduit, to help bring great ideas and points of view and that to people, and then people can use them for whatever, whatever they want. But I just think being that conduit, it's a blessing to be able to be in a situation where I can talk to all of these people, I can learn myself. So
Mm-hmm.
for me right now, the legacy of leaving a body of work there that is like, it's not my work, it's me just as I said, as a conduit. So anything that I could do to inspire other people, to help other people be more successful. Uh, and I think and the other thing too is spreading the word about self awareness because
That's good. Yes.
really, because I wish it's something that I had understood many, many years ago. I mean, I tend not to, I don't believe too much in regretting things, because I think, it's part of your journey. And that's
Mm-hmm.
one thing we didn't get into, but I mean, part of you got to embrace the journey. It's not about the destination. Sometimes it's just about the journey. And therefore, and journeys are, life journeys are never straightforward. They meander and they take
That's
left turns
right.
and things
You
happen
do.
and stuff. So yeah, I just think that you just take that with you and enjoy the journey, and take time to look around you as you go through your life journey.
Hmm. Well, it's been so wonderful having you here, John. And is there anything else that you would like to leave with the audience before we wrap up?
No, I'll just repeat again. My compatriot Oscar Wilde is like, be yourself because everyone else is taken.
I love that. So thank you everyone for joining. Domo arigato gozaimasu. Thank you so much. And the Samurai Way podcast is for helping people learn about the samurai way, because we can learn from the code of Bushido: courage, integrity, benevolence, respect, honesty, honor, and loyalty. Ikigai, knowing your purpose, and I'm still studying that. I do
Mhm.
know something, but I want to learn it more the Japanese way before I really present it. And then Gambaru, never give up. There's always a
Mhm.
way. And had I given up, with which I wanted to so many times when
Sure,
I was going through
sure.
traumatic brain injury, I wouldn't be here with you today, nor would I have written a book or been speaking on stages. So I'm just really thankful that I went through the journey, as painful as it was, and we all have those types of journeys. But
Yeah, and congratulations on beating that, by the way.
oh, thank you, and it's been wonderful getting to know you, and thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. And I'll call that a wrap for today. And thank you for everyone. So be sure to like, subscribe, and share this word and the knowledge. And uh, I believe that we can make the world a better place by sharing good things instead of going down that negative road about, oh, the economy, this and that and the other thing. Well, we can also talk about the good things, because there are good people saying good things, teaching good things, and doing good things. So
Mhm.
that's the samurai way. So that's a wrap for now. And I'll say goodbye. Mata ne. Thank you so much. And that's a wrap for today's episode, The Samurai Way. I hope you found a little inspiration, a new perspective, or just something to reflect upon as you go about your day. Now remember, the samurai spirit isn't just about history. It's about how you show up, face challenges, and live with purpose. Whether it's Ikigai guiding your path or a little extra Gambaru pushing you forward, keep walking strong. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, share, or leave a review. It really helps. And if you've got some thoughts, questions, or you just want to connect, just contact me. So until next time, stay focused, stay determined, and keep living with purpose. Mata ne.